Hey everyone, Brandon here. I'm just going to review some things you can do to look at your data now that we have two benchmarks, Form A and Form B done. So just to remind you, I'm logged into LinkIt. You're going to select on reporting and then go to dashboard to get to the data. And what I'm going to do here before anything, I'm going to select this guy here. This is the anonymizer. So that means I can, it's going to have students' names and teachers' names, but it's going to actually mix them all around, so it's not true data. Just to so we're not looking at anyone's data as we look here. So I'm using that anonymous mode. I'm going to save and relaunch here, and now this guy should be lit up. Yep, and you'll see the yellows there. So now this data is all scrambled around. So if I go to view school, I'm going to select a school randomly here, and I'm going to select grade 3. So I don't know who, but you would select. So you'd select your. You wouldn't have to select your school because you're already connected. And then I'm going to just look at this grade 3 for this random data here. And I'm going to pull Form A that they took before and Form B. And as you can see here, I can compare these two grade levels, and you can compare your class. And so I can see that the first in Form A, they had 39.5% on the benchmark, and they moved up to 61.1. You can also compare yourself to district results and stuff like that. If you're a principal, you can go ahead and look and see the teachers. So again, these teachers, this is all random. You can see the difference in the increase and how the students did. From here, so you're looking at those comparisons. Now I want to probably go to Form B to look at how the students did because that's the most recent data. So if I click on here to item analysis, again, you see you have all the questions and how they were answered. A couple of things that I figured out over time. Of course, we want to add skills to see what the weakest skills are. You can do standards if you want. But here, this is great. But if you go ahead and select average points here, it will actually show the weakest questions first, and then the ones the students got all the way down. So the questions students got were really good here. The weakest ones were up here, so there's 20%. I can then click on that Q. I can look at what the question is. I can show the teacher or student rationale, so you can see, all right, well, why did the students get that question wrong? So 43, B, a lot of the kids thought it was B. Well, why? Let's go over to B, select that. It says mistakenly commutes 5 and 7. So that will give us an idea of why the students got that question wrong, and hopefully we can reteach that with ease. And we can work through all these other problems and look at the skills that are weakest. So I'm looking here, fractions. Again, fractions. So maybe we haven't reviewed fractions. We just started talking about fractions, so the students might be weak on that because they haven't had it, or maybe it's an area they have had that we need to reteach and work with them on. So once we look at the test, we can now go over and click on Student Report. I'm going to go ahead and select a class. And now I have these random students. I can sort them by score, and I'm going to go and see what the weakest student is doing. And I can see that I have their test here. I can also look at their skills, so it adds the skills here to the bottom. Again, I can select student and see what their weakest skills were and what their best skills were compared to the class that's here, and what questions on the test were associated with that skill as well. And I see fraction is, again, another weak one for this student. And I'm guessing a lot of the students are going to have weaknesses. So if I go to the highest student here, I can click on how they scored, move it up. So measuring area, the student fractions they did quite well in, so they're high level. If I go to the middle, I can then again look at this and see what their weaknesses are. And fractions, liquid volume and mass, and I can look at the data, and you can also manipulate this any way you want. Now, to print, here's the thing. Use Firefox. For some reason, Chrome's not working well with printing, so get into Firefox if you want to print. If I select print here, I can batch print the class. So if I select that, nothing really happens. Remember, that green little dot up here comes up. If I select that, I can now select the report I want to print, and I can open that and then print it. So print for me. And here's all the data, okay? I'll go back over to it. And then you can have these for conferences, for individual students, or whatever you want. So you can print those off. All right, so remember the breadcrumbs here. So I'm going to go back. I want to go back to School Explorer here, and I want to look at diagnostics. So if I select the diagnostics here, just to remind you, this is where you can select a random class. I can look at the standards and how the students are doing for this class. I can change it to skills, so I can look at those different diagnostics and move them around and see how the students did. More pulling out all the student information, but looking just as the class as a whole, looking at those averages. So I can say, all right, this is my weak areas. I know why. So it just sort of helps you organize the data. So there's a lot of different ways you can utilize this. It's just really which way is going to help you answer the questions you need to answer for your data analysis. Last but not least, just to go in, we did the student thing. I want to remind you about groups. If I want to go ahead here and group by skill, so I'm going to look at my students, and I can select all the skills or a certain skill. So let's say I was worried about fractions, so I'm going to uncheck all these, and I'm going to go ahead and create a group, and I'm going to create 5 groups, and I'm going to create that group, and I have listed here. All right, here's the students that got. Now I'm looking at all 3rd grade, so you could do this for your individual class or for the whole group if you're working together. So I can see group 1, they all got zeros on the benchmark. So this group needs intervention with fractions. Group 2 and group 3, they're all at 33%, so they need some support. Group 4, they're all at 67, so maybe they're getting it, but they need just a little bit more help. And then there's my students that maybe I'm going to use those 100 students over to support these other groups to reteach, because we all know when you have students teach each other, that more learning goes on for them and for the other students. So you could have these groups as well. So just want to remind you about grouping. And other than that, that's a quick overview, just reminding you how to go through these benchmarks. Any support, any help you might need from myself or Lisa, we're more than happy to come out and help you. Hope this was beneficial. Have a great day, and we'll see you soon. Thanks so much.